You're the host.
Who's got the floor? Shane?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May 8th edition of the Kubernetes SIG Network Meeting. As always, this meeting is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, boiling down effectively to be nice to one another. So please do be nice to one another. Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom when you have questions or interjections, as that helps us to keep things flowing. This is an open agenda meeting. We currently don't have anything on the agenda except triage. So if you have something that you want to add, please do feel free to add it to the meeting doc that's linked to this meeting. And we'll get to everything that we can here. If there's anything that rolls over, we can put it in the parking lot for next time. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And it looks like for now, unless somebody adds something, just focus on triage. You want me to share my screen, Tim? I will grab... I got
if you have it up,
share. Yeah,
go for it.
I don't have screen sharing capabilities. Can you co-host me, please, Dan?
I've got it here. Hold on. I'll just do it since I've got it loaded too.
Okay.
All right. I loaded up 5 or 8 triage issues. There's not that many actually. We have only 11 that are marked as needs triage. So working through them in most recent order. Can I set up 2 HTTP probes and gRPC probes in one pod? I have running HTTP-based REST API foobar out. gRPC.
This seems like not actually SIG Network.
Have they tried it before?
I'll take this one and respond. I think the question is sort of ill-formed. Unless somebody else really wants it, I'll be happy to respond to it. All right. Investigate. Services should be able to change. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's for me. There is I'm promoting the service header was DA, and now need to go to log by default. And I was going through all the test logs to see if there is something weird, and there is some test that mutates from external to not external, and it seems that the IP object leaks, or don't know if it's expected. I need to check that. I forget to accept the bug assigned to me.
But you unassigned yourself.
Put an unassign. Okay. Yeah, that was the other day that I was unassigning all by default, but this I didn't want to unassign from this.
Are you didn't mean to unassign from this?
Yes, I had a bunch of them and I unassigned from all of them, but this was not in the
okay, to mark this one triage accepted?
Yes. It shouldn't also show up here.
Okay. External IPs, DNAT rules are not installed when cluster IP is none. Did we talk about this last time, I think? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I didn't actually speak to the validation. All right, I'll answer that one. That's fair. I think we can close that afterwards. I think it's just a validation bug that we may not be able to fix. Introduce topology.kubernetes.io rack. We talked about this a couple weeks ago too. Any updates on this?
But one in the previous one, are you saying we should validate? We don't set external IP on this more for your pitch about services and API.
We probably should have validated that. The question is, can we validate it now, or will that be breaking to somebody? A lot of these validation bugs, the best we can do is just issue a warning that says, hey, external IPs are ignored when your type is none. The best we can do.
Okay. And I assume that load balancers will have the same thing.
Yeah, I'll respond here and suggest if somebody turn it into a help wanted for another warning. Topology rack 2 weeks ago. We were talking about rack level semantics, and there have been no updates since then. Was that Dan who agreed? What do we want to do with this? Dan, you had solid arguments. Do we want to poke it again? Do we just want to close it?
I think you had some questions for the author, if I'm not mistaken, that they really hadn't had a chance to respond to yet.
Yeah, I think that was why we left it open before, because I had asked, like, why do you need this to be standardized? But this could also be a help wanted thing, like if somebody wants to dig into the problem and figure out what we should be doing here.
Yeah, I think one issue which people have raised throughout the thread is like, is it actually standard? Like, is there a standard?
I don't think there is. I mean, we're down into data center architecture at this point, right? Like a rack might be a top of rack switch, or it might be multiple top of rack switches, or it might be a shared TOR.
But by that argument, I mean, region isn't really standard either. For instance, if you're in a single data center, like region is meaningless, right? So
sure, if you're in a single data, I mean, we've defined what region means, right? Like independent failure zones, and a region is comprised of zones. So like there's a minimally useful standard definition of what region and zone is. There isn't necessary. I mean, maybe we could craft a minimally useful definition of what rack means that isn't literally rack, like could mean TOR, but we haven't crafted that, and that information isn't available from clouds, for example. And it, like my question was mutability, right? Like, can I migrate your VM to a different rack? Do I then update the label? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? We know we don't support migration across of a single VM across zones like in Google. Does anybody support migration across zones? I'd be surprised at that. All right, I pinged it here. We can revisit in a couple weeks. Service cider, how to control allocation. Where do we leave this?
This is something that we were hearing. I hear from another people in multiple forums, and also I think that's Surya.
Yep.
To have, and this person put together some demo to use it to do some kind of fermentation, or what is the word that people, tenancy.
Yeah.
And what we have, and I commented this with Dan, is we have this managed by label, and I think that adding the managed by label can be done with existing objects for service siders. But Dan made some points, and now I'm not completely sure. But I think that it would be feasible for somebody to study that can be used. So the service sider managed by indicates the ones that are controlled by Kubernetes.
My concern here is this is just one instance of this idea of a tenanted cluster resource, something that's smaller than a cluster but bigger than a namespace, which we don't have a scope for in our API language. So, I tagged Munners on here. I tagged some people inside Google who are thinking about tenancy stuff too. Surya had a comment about OVNK, which is great. I don't think we should do something here that is like unique to service-siders. I think if we open this can of worms, we have to deal with volumes and every other sort of cluster scoped concept, which I'm okay with, but I don't have the bandwidth for at the moment. So I was hoping maybe Munners would jump in, but he hasn't yet. You know what? I'll send a response to this after the meeting, just because I think it's an interesting problem. Allow disabling health check node port. I remember discussing this one too. Where did we leave off last week?
This was assigned to me though, but I think Dan has been taking ownership of this, so I haven't responded quite well. I think Dan has a more concrete idea of what's happening over here.
I think it basically comes down to service via gateway. Like we could add this feature, but we don't want to.
Okay, should we close?
Probably, yeah.
Do you want to close it?
Okay.
Can you write a wrap-up comment and close it? We'll see if anybody screams. Cube proxy, inconsistent behavior about disabling health check server and metrics server. Ooh, this is an old one. It's woken back
This
up.
must have gotten
Yep.
for triage. Assign this to me if it's, oh, it already is. Okay, I'll look it over.
I mean, that is the purpose of the triage bot, waking things up. So API services, status blocked and failed discovery check.
From what I can tell, this is a real bug. I was reading ahead on this one a little bit.
Okay.
But if I'm understanding correctly, then Lars is no longer working on K8, so he unassigned himself, and he suggested that because NF tables is going to replace IPVS, that maybe we just could say, you know, this is won't do because of that, but it does look like it's a real issue. Basically a race condition where the port conflicts with the Kube API server's port.
Does that mean, do we verify it against, is it just IPVS? I didn't read the whole issue.
I'm double checking.
Yeah, I think that they are publishing what is the name? The standard API server or something, and it's listening the service. And the problem is that it's conflicting with the port and is not able to.
That right there, if you stop scrolling in the middle there, Lars says does not exist for the other modes.
Ah, there we go. Shane, since you read ahead, do you want to do a response on here?
Sure.
Thank you. As a reminder for folks, triage is about following up on issues to see if they're real, not necessarily solving them. So feel free to sign up. Service resource support set-based selector. Yes, this is one that was woken up. So I said this a year ago. Unclear if we can add another form of selector, but the more I've been thinking about, I did respond to. Look at that. I think it is possible. The question is, would we want to? On one hand, cluster IP gateway seems like a better answer. On the other hand, cluster IP gateway isn't happening anytime soon, it seems. Like, I don't hear about this a lot. I don't get a lot of people saying, I need a service selector that is more expressive than what the map selector can do. So, you know, my instinct is to not fix things that aren't actually very broken. But I do think it's possible. So if somebody were to show up and say, I'm going to add a modern selector and here's my use case, I don't know that I would say no. What do you think, Dan?
I mean, if they could do it without creating API concerns about the fact that currently no selector means something else, then
there's a long-standing question about whether sort of the assumption of the lack of specificity means that there can't be alternatives. We've never been really good about documenting that. We do say if you don't specify a selector, it means that endpoints are managed by some other mechanism. That other mechanism could just as well be part of service. Right? I mean, I feel like that's a valid positioning.
I guess. I mean, the other thing is, though, I mean, like, you're generally making a service pointing to your own pods, and you can control the labels on your own pods. So what you were saying about, is this actually a problem? People ought to be able to just do their labels differently such that they don't need the more complicated semantics. It seems more like an API consistency thing than a API expressiveness thing. And in that case, adding, duplicate fields seems like more of a lose than a win. And now people are raising their hands, so I should stop talking.
Shane and Bowie.
My thought was, yes, it sounds like this is something that we could do. Who is going to do it? And looking at the history of it, like it was closed in 2020, reopened and assigned by Jay in 2020 to the person who's still assigned. I get the sense that nobody's ready to work on it. So it may be better to just close this and say, we're not necessarily opposed to this, but given the history and how long it's been hanging around and nobody's, we are a community of volunteers. If somebody wants to volunteer, comment on here, we can reopen it.
So there's been some ongoing discussion around Contribex and, what does it mean to really be help wanted? Does it mean we as a SIG are enthusiastically like, we really want this, but we need somebody to work on it? Or does it mean we're fine with it, but we're also fine with not having it? We could turn this into a help wanted issue and just throw it into the queue, and maybe somebody will work on it and maybe they won't. If we do that, we sort of are obligated to give a little bit more details about how it would work, which, who wants to spend a half hour thinking about it? Like, it's not a huge amount of time, but it is a half hour.
So is that more like a help allowed? It's like
meh.
Help
okay.
Sorry, Bo,
so
you're
there's
next.
an interesting thing which there's an interesting thing about the simple selector, which is that you can abstractly compare the set that the selector selects without necessarily going to the label. And I don't know if that property is true for the fancy selector. So that might be something interesting. Is this the highest priority on the SIG is the other question.
Absolutely not.
Right, that's
absolutely not.
Oh, let's like dig this like thing out of the ground. It's like, oh, there's another thing that we need to take care of.
The question that I have is, like, it's not the highest priority. I'm not going to go work on it. I doubt anybody on the call today is going to go work on it. But if somebody had this itch and they decided to try to scratch it, are we going to tell them, no, you have to live with the itch? Or are we going to say, okay, we'll help you to be successful with it? I would like that to be our answer, but I also know the practicality is we all have limited hours. Antonio or Bowie?
Yeah,
okay. You're up, Antonio.
Yeah, there was, I have a request from this CubeRay project. They wanted this feature to use. I'm reading it now because I need to understand. They want to use a selector to use an OR so they can split traffic during upgrades. They just deploy do one deployment, do other deployment, and in the middle they want or how can I say, to control the traffic split between these deployments and use the label for that. And they say that they can do it using an OR. I didn't pay much attention, but it's related to this.
Okay, can you link those threads?
Yes, I'm going to ask.
If there's really a use case for it, if there's a real use case for it, then personally, I'm open to having somebody do it and even laying out how to do it, but we shouldn't just do it on speculation.
But the question is, the selector is a map. Are you suggesting to enhance the existing field or to add an additional field? Because it's the map, how is the map serialized and all this stuff?
Yeah, no, we'd have to add a new field, and it would have to be mutually exclusive with the old one.
There is no magic with the map, because when it's implemented, it's a pointer, right? But when it's serialized to JSON and Proto, that
no, it looks like a JSON object is how a map is represented. All right.
So it's not, you cannot do fancy things. So
no, there's no easy conversion from a legacy map selector to one of the modernish fancy selectors.
Okay. Okay. So, and you add a new field, and then you need to do the
We would need to
publishing.
add the validation that says you can set one or the other, but not both. You know how much I love reviewing service validation
Yeah,
code
yeah. I
and
was the
adding a
other day
million test
there.
cases.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask this person to. This is for it. Okay.
If
I
they
will
have a
follow.
real use case for it, then I would love to hear it. Like, I'm not saying there's not one. I just don't have one in front of me.
Yeah, they say that they do. I
I mean,
will follow.
actually, I'm sort of lying. Like, I know of at least one use case for it. It's just never been super important, and that was quarantining, right? Being able to say, you know, select all these pods except this ones that have this quarantined label, right?
Yeah, this is the thing that they want to do.
That's what they
Okay.
want. Okay,
Yeah, that's
because you
now
can
that you
say
say that.
not in, right?
Ah, okay.
So if they have more information, if you can link more information into that issue, then we can make a better decision. Okay, I mean, that's all I set up for triage. Anybody else have other issues that they wanted to talk about before I stop sharing?
Nobody
All right.
posted anything on the agenda while we were doing that. So I think we might be adjourned.
All right, everybody gets a half hour back. Congratulations.
Cheers, everyone. Till next time.
We'll see everybody in 2 weeks.